The Dalai Lama and his Tibetan Buddhist teachings have helped millions cultivate compassion, handle stress, and appreciate life. Tibetan Buddhism's popularity has also painted a romantic image of Old Tibet as a peaceful spiritual kingdom. But was it the case? In 2017, Tenpa Yarfel, and member of the Tibetan parliament in exile, publicly criticized the government's continued reliance on the Nechung Oracle and shamanic rituals. He called the practice outdated and incompatible with modern democratic government. So, what exactly is the Nechung Oracle? Why does a modern government still consult a spirit medium who enters a trance to deliver political advice? What are the outdated shamanic rituals? To understand it, we need to examine the origins of Tibetan Buddhism and the political system it created, and see the darker side of an old religion. Before Buddhism became dominant in Tibet, the region contained numerous indigenous beliefs and ritual traditions associated with the local religion of Bon. Priests and spirit mediums performed divination, healing ceremonies, funerary rites, and rituals intended to control dangerous supernatural forces. Buddhism began entering Tibet from India and neighboring regions during the 7th century. Over time, it absorbed and reinterpreted many local practices. Tibetan Buddhism developed a vast ritual world populated by protective deities, wrathful spirits, sacred objects, and enough ceremonial equipment to make assembling IKEA furnitures look straightforward. One controversial practice is the ritual implements were made from human remains. These included the kapala, a bowl made from the upper portion of a skull, drums made from paired sections of skull, and the kangling, a trumpet traditionally fashioned from a human thigh bone. Human remains were often obtained through donations, but that's not always the case. For example, during the Yuan dynasty, the powerful Tibetan official Yanglian Chenjia plundered the tombs of the former southern Song emperors and turned the remains of the late emperor into ritualistic tools. Another Tibetan practice that traditional Buddhists frown on is sexual yoga. These practices developed from Hindu Shaktism's fertility worship. Certain texts describe sexual union as a method for working with desire, consciousness, and subtle bodily energies. Images and statues of deities in sexual embrace, known as yabyum, represent such practices. The practice had been abused to justify relationships between powerful teachers and vulnerable students. In the early 1970s, a naive Scottish woman named June Campbell became a Tibetan Buddhist nun and translator in India. She later revealed that she had been coerced into a sexual relationship with Kalu Rinpoche, a highly respected lama. She was in her 20s serving a teacher in his 70s, and she was not the only woman serving the teacher. She eventually realized the injustice and fled India. She examined the experience in her 1996 book, Traveler in Space: Gender, Identity, and Tibetan Buddhism. Her account was confirmed by many other women who suffered similar fates. She exposed a difficult contradiction. A tradition symbolically celebrate feminine wisdom is used as a tool for abuse. Finally, there is the Tibetan institution of reincarnating lamas known as Tulkus, or living Buddha. A tulku is believed to be the rebirth of a previous spiritual teacher or enlightened figure. The Dalai Lama, for example, is regarded as manifestations of the Bodhisattva of compassion. Popular imagination often treats the discovery of a tulku as a miraculous treasure hunt. Visions appear, oracle consulted, and sacred objects are recognized to select the correct child. But the historical process was more complicated. It seems that reincarnations had a curious habit of appearing within powerful families. The family of the 6th Panchen Lama, the second most powerful Lama, is a classic example. The Panchen Lama's elder brother was the Drungpa Hutuktu, another major reincarnation, and his younger brother became the 10th Shamarpa, leading the Karma Kagyu lineage. Just when you thought 3 Tulkus is enough, his niece was recognized as the only female Tulku at the time, and eventually the 8th Dalai Lama was also born into the family. While monks are forbidden to sire children, reincarnation was instead used to maintain family influence and political power. The Nechung Oracle is the key to this political world, as it is the main decision maker behind many Lama selections. Now, let's examine how this system influences the people of Tibet. In 1950, the Chinese People's Liberation Army invaded Tibet, The following year, representatives of Tibet signed the agreement, bringing Tibet under Beijing's control while formally promising regional autonomy and protection for its religious institutions. But in March 1959, an uprising possibly incited by the CIA erupted in Lhasa. Chinese forces again crushed it. The Dalai Lama fled to India, and the traditional Tibetan government was dissolved. Thousands died, and the Chinese repression during later campaigns shocked much of the world. China presented its rule as the liberation of Tibet from an oppressive feudal system. Supporters of Tibet emphasized invasion, cultural destruction, and political repression. So, what was the old Tibetan government really like? The Buddhism-based political system began in 1642. After long-term integration of Buddhism with local traditions, the Mongol emperor helped install the fifth Dalai Lama as the leading political authority in Tibet. The resulting government united religious and political power and became a theocracy. For roughly 3 centuries, monasteries controlled large estates, collected revenues, influenced political decisions, and maintained their own networks of dependence. Because of Buddhism's political dominance, Tibet supported an extraordinary system of mass monasticism. Before 1959, sources commonly suggest that Tibet contained 2,500 to 2,700 monasteries and around 100,000 to 120,000 monks. This represented approximately 10 to 15% of the population and 20 to 30% of all adult males. Monks focus on religious cultivations and contributes little to the local economy. Maintaining such a large celibate religious population required immense resources from families, estates, and taxpayers. Beside the monks, most ordinary Tibetans lived within a hereditary estate system similar to the Western serfdom. Social mobility was limited, inequality was severe, and political power remained concentrated among a small religious and aristocratic elite. The system's weaknesses became painfully visible during the Gorkha invasions of the late 18th century. Remember the 6th Panchen Lama, who has a family of living Buddhas? He died of smallpox in Beijing in 1780. Disputes erupted over his enormous inheritance. Panchen's younger brother, the 10th Shamarpa, believed he had been denied the inheritance by their eldest brother. So he sought revenge by betraying information on his elder brother's territory to the expanding Gorkhas tribe and resulted in the invasion. Imagine a reincarnate of a compassionate living Buddha invited foreign tribe to plunder his own kin out of pure spite. Gorkha forces invaded Tibet in 1788, capturing border districts and forcing Tibetan officials into an agreement that promised annual payments. When those payments were not honored, the Gorkhas invaded again in 1791. This time, they reached the seat of the Panchen Lamas, Kashilhunpo Monastery. When the divination responded with, "Do not fight with thieves," the Tibetan troops scattered quietly without a valiant defense. The elder brother chose to flee with treasure, abandoning the people to invaders. Finally, the Qing government responded by sending a large imperial army and drove the Gorkhas out of Tibet. The emperor blamed the Shamarpa for encouraging the invasion. After his death, the Tibetan government prohibited official recognition of another Shamarpa incarnation and transferred several associated monasteries to the Gelug school. That is not a story of a timeless spiritual paradise. A tradition can preach compassion while its institutions accumulate power. A teacher can speak beautifully about freedom while operating inside an autocratic hierarchy. A government based on noble teachings often still suffer from nepotism, corruption, inequality, and superstition. However, recognizing this history does not weaken the Buddhist ideals they teach. It makes the need for compassion even greater. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and subscribe to support me in making more animated educational videos.